Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. As a business gets off the ground, the business owner will often drive sales. But over time, the owner will step back from selling, delegating that role to others. And why do they step back? Well, according to sales guru Trent Leyshan, often it comes down to a fear of sales. Business owners, he insists, must get over that fear to win more customers or clients. Trent is the founder of Australia's leading sales development company, Boom Sales. And he's the author of 2 sales books, Outlaw and The Naked Salesman. Sales can't be left to dwindle. And after all, as he tells Chris Ashmore, selling is the lifeblood of any business.
Selling is the ability to win customers, grow relationships, grow the top line of the business, which is ultimately winning customers, is at the core of every business. So I think the mistake a lot of managing directors or CEOs can make is they are disconnected to the sales process. And I think that is ultimately outsourcing the success of their business to third parties who may or may not be fit for role. And that is fraught with danger.
They may have started off with the business as being, in the driver's seat with sales, but as time goes by and as the company gets bigger, they tend not to fall into that position as a salesperson, whether through choice or not. But why is that, do you think?
There's a number of reasons, I think, but typically they grow out of the role. Sometimes they think they're above selling. There's other more important things to do. Once that foundation is set, then there's other things that they are drawn to, such as working on the vision, building their leadership team. I think that's what can be part of it as well. If they are product evangelists or they've developed a product or a solution, they can be sort of obsessed with the product and they just want to focus on that. And sometimes they just don't enjoy selling, because selling the service or the product can come with rejection. It can come with negativity. It's not an easy thing sometimes. So it's much easier just to make that somebody else's priority.
And is that what holds people back from selling well? It's that fear of rejection?
Well, no one likes to be rejected. I think it's an interesting psychology that a lot of salespeople will just present, and many are also just order takers. But when they've got to negotiate, when they've got to follow up, when they've got to do the work, push through or challenge, there can be a real resistance to do that because there's almost a fear of being a salesperson. And that is actually the number one fear of why salespeople don't negotiate, work through objections, challenge customers, or push or follow up, is fear of being a salesperson, which is fascinating psychology when you think about it.
What happens if a salesperson has that fear?
I think the customers will smell it a mile off. At Boom, we have a saying, belief is not important, it's everything. So having a really strong belief in what you're selling or doing is really important. So I think the fear can also come back to maybe a lack of understanding as well as to how to sell well, or it could be a lack of process, could be a lack of coaching, support, mentoring, and again, comes back often to they have a lack of belief in what they're doing, and that fear will come through really, really clearly. So the belief in what you sell, what you're doing, is at the core of all great salespeople, visionaries, leaders.
So how do you suggest flipping that from being fearful of sales to being, say, fearless of sales?
Being fearless. Oh, very nice, Chris. I've written 2 books on the subject, actually. So 2 books, The Naked Salesman, which is about getting naked, being vulnerable, cutting through fears. And my second book, Outlaw, is all about fighting for the customer and selling without fear. But to really simplify that down a little bit, there's 3 really key things, and I did allude to them earlier. And that is having a really strong belief in the company that you work for and what it is that you do or sell. I think it's absolutely fundamental to being successful in anything. And that can come through confidence. But the ability, when you have that belief, then you don't really need to sell that hard. It's just sort of more about engaging people. You look at someone like an Elon Musk, he's just doing amazing things in the world at the moment. I heard him in a podcast recently say, I don't consider myself a business person. I'm an engineer. But when you hear him talk, he has such a belief in what he's doing, and he has this vision, and he's very articulate, very measured. You can see his ability to communicate that belief is what sells the vision and what sells and engages with people. So that's the first thing. That's belief. The second is understanding the art of sales, which is really communication, customer service, leadership, entrepreneurship. You can never stop learning. So it's continually educating yourself on what's working. And the way that we engage with people now has changed. Thanks to digitization, the way that we engage with customers and people is interlinked. So there's lots of things that continually learning. I think that's really an area that people lack, is they don't continue to invest. And there's just a world of information, podcasts, books. It's all at the fingertips now. One swipe, you could be learning. So I think continually understanding is another way to overcome fear. And the other thing is, I think at the core of any successful business is a method or a process or a game plan. So you've got to have a sales process or a methodology that you believe in that works. Leonardo da Vinci once famously said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. When we think of something sophisticated, we might think of it as being really complex and dynamic. But having a really simple method that you do over and over and over again that works is another way to overcome that fear, because you're sticking to the process and you're taking away a lot of those things that may activate fear, and you're going back to what you know works. I think that's a really important thing, is do more of what works. So that will mean having a process. So the belief, understanding and continual educating yourself, and having a proven method. There's many more, but they're three really important factors, I think.
Is it harder to sell these days, do you think?
It is harder if you have the wrong people that don't have the belief, don't have the understanding, don't have the process. So I'll re-anchor that. And it's very easy just to sell in a good market. Anyone can do that. You really just have to talk to people, and there's no selling required when the market's really buoyant. You become sort of order taking. But when things change and it becomes challenging, then you have to go and start to really think about what you're doing. And then you need to have more skill. You need to have better leaders. You need to have better people. So from what I've seen, it's been sort of a light's been shined on some of these businesses that have been operating in that comfort zone state with maybe B-grade salespeople. And now they're really having to start to really think now about how they sell, and they're reinventing themselves, the way that they do things as well. So it's probably two answers to that question. It's yes and no. It is harder, but the companies that are doing it well have really, it's forced innovation. So they've been able to adapt really quickly. And I think that's a really important sort of success characteristic of the businesses that we work with now that are successful post-pandemic, is that they've been able to really adapt quite quickly and been open to change.
Those three keys that you talked about in sales, the belief, the understanding and the process, they're traditional ways of doing selling, whether it's a pandemic or not. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, there's certainly constants. Obviously, the innovation has accelerated with the way that through digitization and technology, so that the fundamentals are still always there. So customers or people still desire to be, respected, appreciated, remembered. Customers will always pay for value, and you've got to make it easy for them. But I guess the delivery methods, how we might achieve those things, is changing and will continue to change. But the fundamentals remain constant.
That was Trent Leyshan, founder of Boom Sales. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.